And it doesn't really matter about the size, you know what I mean? But even guys that have the ability to be in one gap, once you show face in the gap and they can quickly get to another gap with those jump cuts, like those guys are just as headaching, as a guy that's a bruiser, that's a little bit more physical downhill. Um, so yes, and especially when you come into the game and you understand what they're doing, it doesn't really matter, right? They're able to still execute it and get good yardage on those plays. Even in the times you may create some havoc in the backfield, they're still able to find holes. That stuff can be maddening for a defense and for coordinators especially. So um, the different type of styles. And when you got two of them, it makes it even tougher, right? When you got two guys kind of play off each other, they're both fresh, but in some instances, you have guys that can handle that load. And obviously, we get talked about Emmett. He's doing it.
Let me ask a guy that would know a little bit. You don't have to pick a side because we're going to talk to one of these guys tomorrow live. But when you look at running styles, would you rather deal with a guy like Halu or a guy like Amir?
Oh, Alou for sure. I'll say because I feel like Alou was more of a like he was a north south, just hit it and go.
How
And I
about the
think
one step, the gaining ground cuts though?
he did have some really good cuts, but I feel like a lot of his stuff, wasn't maybe as spectacular, or maybe it wasn't as elusive as what Amir brought to the table. And again, that's it's especially at backer when again we talk about run fits all the time on here. We talk about it on Twitter. When we got it X and O, it's fitted up just like the paper, but this guy's able to turn a 3 yard gain into an 8 yard gain. Like how the heck this little dude sneak through? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And trust me, I mean, and especially I think maybe I could be more biased too, just outside of seeing in the games the things he did during practice. I mean, just some pretty spectacular stuff just with how he's able to maneuver. Like I think that's one thing. Everyone runs duo, and the big part about duo working is it's really about the back controlling the flow of the mic backer or whatever backer they're reading. And it sounds like an easy play. Hey, we're just running powers, everybody down block it. But it's not as easy of a read for the running back as zone, right? Because you can feel that a little bit better. And I think that's what makes some of the best running backs great is being able to manipulate run fits to make a guy stay backside when he's supposed to get over top, right? Giving them a
Beautiful.
little bit of dip in with the shoulder, giving a dead leg, and then working their way to the gap they're trying to penetrate. So that is what the great backs do, and makes it difficult for the defenders to be able to fit properly. And even when they do, they can make something out of nothing.
So MRI, when we're talking about Emmett, this is the thing that I keep thinking about is do you think this sort of version of him was always in there or have I think he's gotten significantly better. How much of that do you think is development from even last year or even kind of the start of this year to now versus just the opportunity to consistently get carries?
I think it's a mixture of those two. Now, what's the percentage, right? Is it 75-25 of one or the other? I think that's where you get into the minute of actually, talking to them and talking to the staff around them. But I would say it all starts with the weight room, the development off season. Again, gonna shout out Coach Corey, like what he's been doing, able to do to develop more of the physical and also the mindset of these guys on a consistent basis. And I think Emmett's had the skill set that we're seeing, and I think the confidence is there. I think he's a natural leader, and I think him being when natural leaders are bolstered and placed in leadership roles, they're gonna thrive. And you see, I can tell that he's well liked. He has a great relationship with the guys in the locker room because you see him, at the basketball games at certain events, right? And there's about usually three, four, five guys with him. You know what I mean? And DB, you can kind of tell who's the alpha in the group, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of, who's the guy, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of, hey, we out of here, and everybody said, yeah, we out. So you know what I mean. So I think again, being in that leadership role has helped him. I think just the development in the weight room, taking that seriously. Obviously, being able to take. I think he had 28 carries this past week. I think this is three straight weeks over 25, if I'm not mistaken. I think it may be more than that. Um, so he's getting a heavy load, but it seems like
Yeah,
he's not wearing
88,
down.
81 or 2 in the last 3 games.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I mean, he's getting the carries and he's producing. He's also doing it in the passing games. We saw on that screenplay that was just really good to see. Um, he's having a great year, and I'm glad they're kind of starting a little Heisman push for him. Obviously, just how that works. There's politics within that, so hopefully, he'll get his just due, at least get the recognition with some other awards. But he's definitely proven that he's one of, if not the best running back in the country this season, and he's taking advantage of the opportunities.
MRI, we talked about this before UCLA. We were kind of trying to preview what we may see. I want you to kind of in lay terms walk me through what you would see as a second level defender, because I thought UCLA's linebackers were in a bind. We talked about how I think
Mhm.
you can open up the intermediate passing game. The shallow crosses were going to be there. Like, it's just hard to defend.
Yeah.
When you see a back get in the gun, but he's in pistol, or a quarterback get underneath center and that back is in pistol, versus the same concepts when you go sidecar or offset. What triggers in your mind, even if you understand Nebraska's pet run plays? What do you think about on defense?
Initially, if we're getting single back stuff, I am I'm playing more of a two-way go or read and react more so than, obviously with the back on one side, we can somewhat predict with the indicator being the tight end if he's to the back or away from the back, kind of where the ball's going, right? If they're on the same side, it's going to be some type of counter scheme, or it could be duo, right? Power front side. If they're opposite, right, we're expecting some type of zone split, outside zone, mid zone, things like that. So you can kind of get a feel possibly for what could be coming with those alignments. One thing I really liked early on, and I thought Lateef did a really good job of, and Dana scripting it, was getting them under center.
Hard.
I thought that really did a number on the UCLA linebackers, and again forced them to play a little bit slower in their fits, right? Not fitting so fast on things. And again, you get a guy like Emmett who can again press gaps, manipulate run fits with his running style. You get him at almost 7.5 yards, and he gets a downhill read, right, to be able to
It's an
see the
auto
flow.
two-way go.
Right. And again, the greats are able to make those linebackers press their gap, right? But not be able to fit their gap with leverage. And, we saw that early on that first drive. I mean, it was scripted very well. Lateef looked very comfortable. One thing I look for with young quarterbacks, and you saw it with Dylan. Dylan was making all the audibles too, but I didn't see a kind of a decrease of command of the quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Where, hey, if we're getting two play calls, which I mean they got the
Oh,
intercoms and
oh,
things in there. Yeah.
you mean from Holgerson? Sorry, MRI.
Yes, from Hogerson.
Clarify.
Yeah, from Hogerson. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
So
because that's a great. Go ahead, but you're
yeah,
talking about a decrease in command from the OC with
right.
the quarterback.
With the quarterback, yeah, and that's what I was interested to see, was everything coming from the sideline. And there were some times they would look to the sideline, check things off, but you could tell, maybe can't say tell, but as guys that watch football or maybe understand play calls and more of a complex, right? Usually they call two plays, right? And we can have a can or kill or check with me, things like that, where we can go to the play, we get that look. And you saw that early on and during the script, but you also saw that during the game where Lateef was the guy making the right audibles to the, whether it be a run play, RPO, whatever it is they have on the menu. And I thought he did a really good job with that. And I thought that also helped, his comfort level, right? When I know I got two play calls, and if I don't like the pass or the RPO, I can give it to a guy that can handle that load. So I thought Dana did a really good job um, putting together a game plan that obviously Lateef and Emmett and the rest of the offense were successful with.
You're one of the few guys, because it's usually always football related, that I actually don't mind carrying on conversations with in game. You had some interesting tells with what UCLA wanted to do offensively. When you're watching games now, is it possible, or is this just for the good ones, where, because some guys are really good with tells, some guys are really good schematically. Some guys are really good with adjustments. Some guys are all of it. Do you think coaches that always worried about execution and are we where we need to be can be good with tells at the same time, like real time?
Man, that's a good question, and I'm thinking about myself as a coach. I'm exactly that way you just described. I can watch the game, and I think that's like maybe that's just me, any coach on the couch type of mentality or thing, where you see it from a different perspective, so you can see what the tells are, right?
Yeah,
And
because you're
just
at
even
that point, you're not as interested in the
yeah, yeah, you're not as interested in execution, right? You're putting together more so puzzle pieces, right? Whereas on the field, it's a little more tactical, right? And I think it's hard to have consistent success as a coach if that's your mentality. If you're thinking, um,
what can we pick
you're
up?
thinking more about execution than about, okay, what has changed from what we saw Monday through Thursday? You know what I mean? What tendencies have they broken? More so than because we go into the game looking for, hey, I've been watching film, hey, 5 times out of gun trips right, they're running inside zone, right? And I'm yelling on the sideline the first time I see it, inside zone, and then they go quick step 3 pass or 3-step pass game to the out on the backside receiver. It's like, okay, all right, I got to recognize that they recognize their own tendencies. I think I just saw a tweet from a really good coach that I follow that the best offensive coaches know their tendencies and know the perfect time when to break them. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that's really, really important when you're talking about, the development of an offense and the structure is having that ability to do that. And defensively as well as the defensive coordinator, I think more importantly, because you're in a reactive situation already.
So yeah, Michael,
So
I'm
that's really
I'm glad you kind of brought
that's
that
a
up at
tough
the
question, man, and you answered it
Yeah.
seamlessly like that. Because I think sometimes we want it all, right? And
Right. Yeah.
it's really because I think not coaching for a while and then having specific roles as a coach, then
Hmm.
look at things in its totality as a coordinator. Like I've evolved in what my strengths are. You know what I
Right.
mean? But I think sometimes real time you have to delegate those things. Like
Hmm.
sometimes you want to say, "Hey, listen, Mark, when they're an H back to the field, hey, chart close open versus closed tendencies, right? Because
Right.
as a coordinator, you're not probably as cognizant real time, even though Monday through Friday you have good percentages, right? Because like what do we always say? They have a marker and dry erase board too.
Right.
Like that's why I like the part where you're
And
really
everyone's got the huddle. I mean, you got the huddle sideline,
yeah,
but you're
that's
seeing
why I
stuff
like
in
the
live
second
in
part of
live
your answer,
action.
right? Like that's the game within the game about okay, how can I like what's actually happening now? Like
Right.
where are the tendency breakers?
Right.
I,
Yep. I
go
mean,
ahead.
that's why I love it. I mean, I definitely got through out of playing, but the coaching, I think there's a certain ego of coaching that like I can't control the outcome, but I can. And I think it's neither negative or positive, but I think that's the draw that I think the adrenaline rush of coaching is like I can get someone, I'm trying to get someone to execute something that I physically can't do myself. And I think that's a big draw, at least for me. I mean, that's a thrill for me. I mean, we're still playing now, and that still gets you going. You know what I mean? Especially the
Yeah.
deeper you go and the more you're playing. So
You
it's
you,
it's a fun thing. It's a
you
fun,
can
but it's a headache sometimes.
you can be as specific or as general as you want to when I look at what you felt Nico Iamaliava brought to the table in terms of his athleticism, and how Nebraska tried to defend it a couple of different ways. Because I think you would agree, off tackle, QB power, inside zone with the kick. They tried it a couple of different ways, right? We saw them on the
Yeah.
goal line versus the fourth and short. So you can speak to that. And then do you feel like the pass rushing or the pressure that they wanted to bring and when they wanted to bring it changed after they watched him evolve during that game?
I'll say he definitely impressed me. His athleticism, I knew about the athleticism. I thought him having a little more command of the passing game that we've seen in the recent weeks. I think that lended itself to maybe a little more leakage of yardage and also the change of philosophy too. Now we're okay if he's passing at an efficient rate and getting the ball in the right spots and they're catching the ball and getting yards out the catch, then we have to think about how we're again tendency breakers, right? Okay, we maybe came in game plan thinking let's one high, single high, load the box, keep somebody with eyes and presence on him. Okay, now we're seeing the ball get spread out. Then we have to change our philosophy. Maybe we're going to more four-man rushes with some stunts and stuff like that, which they did. And I thought they did a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Again, like you said, those C gap runs, and that's when I text you or I think I tweeted you, hit you in the DMs or whatever, kind of about
Oh,
the
with it
tells of the
with the
of
tight
the
end.
tight end. Yeah, the tight end's depth.
Yep.
And when he was off a little bit, he was coming back. When he was closer on the line of scrimmage, but still off the line, still back behind the tackle, right? It was staying front side or it was a pass. And those are just small tells, you can kind of get throughout the game if you're just looking at and focusing on those type of things. But again, his athleticism definitely opened things up. I think there were some times the pass rush got to him and they were, on him in his face, flushed him, but wearing man coverage or some type of coverage where our eyes are going to receivers because we got to defend down this space, right, that they're taking advantage of, and that lends itself to the scramble yardage, which you had to expect. I mean, again, it's frustrating. You want to get them down in those situations. I don't necessarily think I saw a lot of spies, like just straight up spies. Hey, I got a guy just sitting down the middle, maybe towards the end of the game. But running a spy with quarterback design run as much as it sounds good, it kind of negates the spy because it's just a run fit now.
Yep.
And now we're playing 11 on 11 now. And so again, and this
The
is
low
someone
hanging
that
fruit is just to say why don't you spy him, but
why don't you spy, right?
it
Yeah.
doesn't really work
It
like
just
that in
it just
theory.
turns to a cover one run fit. You know what I mean? The spy is only activated when it's a pass, and being someone that's, Nick Saban lover and middle of the field close cover three,
Oh,
the big
oh,
thing
good
that
shit.
I've come to realize is you're really one person down the fit because that middle field safety is getting out. Now there's ways you can play cheat and tell him, hey, you're gonna rerun before, but I mean he's still coming from 10 to 12, right? So you have to get in more two high structures. So okay, so now then you get in your two high structures. Like, are we gonna play quarters and do we want our safeties to fit or do we want our corners to fit? And that's where you get a lot of those. Um, just depending on what you're doing, you saw from Nebraska again. Their main things they're going to play their cover two and send their corners, but again, there's still some things they got to work on with cracker play situations when the cornerback's getting blocked by the receiver, how the safety fits off of that, and it just becomes difficult when you add the quarterback. I mean, that's just football. I mean, you play 11 on 11 football. It's tough. Guys have to win their one on one, and that's I think that's more. I won't say the concern, but again, you just want to keep seeing guys evolve in that space where okay, you're in your gap, you're going to the right fit, but are you winning on your block, getting off your block, and getting contact on the runner, right? And that's where you don't see that consistently, and I think they got to keep improving on that.
So how important is it? I am so sorry.
Go for it. Are you good?
I'm so sorry. That's three questions in a row. I apologize. But I'm in like this is kind of heaven for me during these segments because sometimes I'll occasionally say things. I don't know if you listen to the broadcast, but I'll say, these teams now like to put Nebraska's corners in conflict with the run fit. And
Yep.
we talk a lot about crack replacing and this how it's very difficult for safeties. You better know box spill if you're going to alley run.
Right.
Why do when you're watching how Nebraska wants to play coverage versus what you see all these teams try to do to Nebraska now? Because it's pretty copycat. I think Michigan
Hmm.
started it, and everybody has their variation. Some are very good at executing it, some are not. Nebraska's got to be really physical on the perimeter. We saw guys like Marshall, Donovan Jones showed, but you still need safety alley running.
Yep.
How important is this a trust or a scheme thing when you watch kind of the boomer bust tendencies?
I think it's a scheme thing. I think it's what they've said they want to be. I think it's what they've shown they've wanted to be. When I look at them, I don't. see them as much as a quarters team, right? I see them as a cover two, cover one, man pressure type of team. If we really chart it and sit down and look at it, I think they'd be heavily lean towards those two concepts. So I think from what we've seen, it's a scheme thing. Now again, we have to be in behind those closed doors. Is it a scheme thing because it is a trust thing, right? Is that leading to why we have to make this a scheme thing? But I think they've shown that they want the ball, which is just interesting to me. And as much as we talk about how much they box things with cover two, you got to spill it to the corner. So
Yeah,
it's just I
he's a
think there's
he's the natural flat defender, right?
yeah,
Unless
he's a
you
natural flat, right? Unless you're doing some type of inverted things with the safeties and corners and switching their roles. But it's just interesting to me. I think there's some overlap in those things, but also some things that kind of work differently. So I think that could lend itself to a little bit of the misfits confusion sometimes we see. But yeah, I think it's definitely a scheme thing. But I don't know. I can't say in particular if it's a trust thing or just hey, this is the guys we got, or is this Butler's? That's what I'm interested. Like obviously, I don't want to simulate through this season. I'll keep enjoying the season. These guys doing great things, but I'm very interested to see what the defensive scheme looks like next spring. I think is this just again, and DB, we've texted about this kind of Tony White's defense and how it's looked at Florida State, and regardless of numbers, just talking about the structure
Mhm.
in the structure that's been here at Nebraska with Butler, it's very similar, right? Not a little, not as much fall off, right, as people would assume with Butler coming in. So I'd be very interested in the spring, kind of what this structure looks like. Obviously, with some different pieces in different spots, but also some guys that played this year, and kind of see what does he really dial into to make this his own identity, or is this something that's coming from the head guys? Hey, I want us to be like this on defense, and be very interested to see. Just foreshadowing that and talking about that in the future.
I know nothing about because I wouldn't ask the question. It never seemed to me like even early in the pressers that Nebraska wanted to be a quarters team, right?
Yeah,
You actually just intimated that, like the more one, more two, the man stuff. It's, I wonder, let me know what you think about this. Do you think they're playing because Coach Rule liked a lot of the philosophy, and Butler obviously is extremely bright,
right.
that they're playing the long game while they're still getting wins, right? This is a system that they're obviously going to tweak
Right.
and adjust. Are they stealing time right now, in your opinion, implementing some of the fundamentals, knowing that they're just going to build on it eventually?
That could be the case for
Yeah,
sure, and I
I'm
think
I'm
that's
just
that's
curious.
where
I don't
no,
know,
yeah,
but
and I think that no, I have the same curiosity. And that's why I'm intrigued to see what this structure, this scheme looks like, next spring, maybe with some different bodies, some of these older guys in the back end, those guys leaving and some of the young guys emerging. Do they, do some things change? And more times than not, when you see different like percentages of coverage go up and down with teams, it's more so like identifying, hey, we can do this with these guys, right? Until you get to the point where, hey, we've been here 2, 3 recruiting classes, and now it's just a systematic approach. Hey, we know who we're recruiting. We know the guy we're recruiting for this position can do this thing that we've seen and had on film for 3 to 4 years, and we can continue to make that a cycle, right? And get guys that we want in there. So again, springtime be definitely interested to see how everything looks for the defense.
Mm. Michael, real quick, one of the other things that I hear quite a bit is, well, why don't they run more zone? You can keep eyes on the quarterback and have everything in the backfield. In your experience, is that an effective way to kind of curtail quarterback run game, either designed or scramble? And B, knowing what John Butler likes to do defensively, what is he giving up if he were to switch to more zone looks?
It doesn't help. It does help, obviously, with those guys' eyes, more focused on the quarterback, less on either matching routes or being in true man-to-man situations. It does help, but it doesn't it doesn't deter it, I don't believe, right? It maybe turns some of those bigger gains of 8 to 10 to 5. And if you're thinking process oriented and say we want to just keep everything in front of us, I think That's fine. It's a fine strategy to have. But when you look at answering the second part of the question, what Butler kind of has shown and wants to do, I think they want to be somewhat aggressive, and I think it always helps when you can change the math. Big Dan Lanning guy, one of their sayings is 1 + 1 = 3. Like the sum of our parts have to be the no the sum of our parts have to equal more than just who we are, right? So we have to find a way to change that math, and you have to find a way to get those four guys to be able to cut up, contain, and hopefully penetrate six gaps while they're rushing against five guys right up front. And that helps more than any zone coverage or man coverage. If you can do that, it really doesn't matter what we do on the back end. I think they were credited for one or two sacks, I believe, versus UCLA. Um, so I think that if you can capitalize on those opportunities to take advantage of one-on-one blocks on the outside and win on the edge and actually bring the quarterback down, then I think playing zone helps, but it doesn't stop them. Again, you can do spies and other things, even blitzing and flushing them. Those are good pressures that I think you can use as